The key to more creative ideas, more inspiration, more motivation is boredom. When you are surrounded by other people's ideas, but your own well is frustratingly dry, it can feel like you're doing something wrong. The truth is, your creativity is being stifled. Let's talk about one unlikely way that we can access an unlimited supply of creativity and inspiration. All right, y'all, take a deep breath. You've made it to the Writing Woods. Here, there is no pressure, there is no stress. We are just hanging out in the woods and talking about writing. If you're looking for more storytellers who share your mindset of wanting to create something they're passionate about, head over to the free Writing Woods community. It is such a good time over there, and we would love to have you. If you're willing, take a little trip with me. We are on a raft moving down a fast river. We're trying to get water, but every time we dip our bucket in the river, the water splashes right out. We are surrounded by water, but we can't seem to get any for ourselves. And the harder we try, the faster everything moves, and the more the water just splashes right out of our bucket. Y'all, we live in a world with constant stimulation at our fingertips. Waiting in line for 2 minutes? Just pull out your phone and you are exposed to an entire library of dopamine-rich stimulation. Our world is full of constant inputs. We are consuming 24/7. We're consuming data, stories, ideas, sensory information. And it's not a surprise. There are some really base reasons that we as human beings are drawn to do this. Number one, boredom is uncomfortable. From an evolutionary perspective, boredom signals an opportunity to innovate, to create, to do something to keep yourself alive. Those of our species who liked boredom, who enjoyed sitting on their hands and doing nothing, did not do what was necessary to pass on their genes. They didn't take those opportunities to build a safer structure, to go find food, to find a mate. Boredom is uncomfortable for us because we are wired to chase creativity and innovation. Overall, that has been a very good thing for our species as a whole. If you have any question about whether we are truly wired to do this, look at the 2014 study where researchers put folks alone in a room for 6 to 15 minutes. The room was completely empty except for a single button, which the participants were informed would administer them an electric shock if they pressed it. All right, y'all go ahead and guess what percentage of folks pressed the button. Of men, 67% press the button, and 25% of women. They would rather be in physical pain than be alone with their thoughts and be bored. The second reason we do this is that we are trained to chase constant productivity. It's touted as a positive thing. Listening to a podcast during your commute, squeezing in a news article while you're waiting in line at the grocery store. We see these as positive things because we're learning something, right? It's productive. But we are overlooking all the harm that comes from filling every bit of empty space in our lives. And yes, sometimes we fill that space with things like social media, which we pretty much recognize as a net negative activity at this point. We talk about brain rot and games on your phone that we all kind of call bad. But we also fill these moments with podcasts and ebooks and things where we're learning, and overall it seems like a net positive, because if we don't, we're wasting time. Let's go back to the river. We're on our raft. We're moving at a steady clip. Can't seem to fill our bucket with even a few drops. So instead, we navigate to the shore. We get out of the water and we start to walk through the quiet forest. The sound of the river fades away and it's replaced by bird songs and the wind through the trees. And there's no water here, but we're not looking for water. We're just walking, listening, and noticing. What is happening here? What is happening when we walk through the forest, when we experience boredom? First of all, we are lowering our baseline for stimulation. When we allow ourselves to experience these moments of boredom, of low stimulation, we lower that baseline so that we actually feel moments of happiness and connection more deeply. When we constantly eliminate these moments of silence from our lives, when we're experiencing near constant stimulation, that baseline is so high that then it takes more and more to make us feel those emotions, and we wind up feeling hollow and unfulfilled and chasing something that is actually making it worse. Think of this like sugar, right? If you eat a ton of processed sugar and then you have an apple, the apple's probably not going to taste very sweet because you've been chowing down on Twinkies and corn syrup, and relatively speaking, that apple just can't compete. But say you cut out all sugar from your life, then all of a sudden that apple tastes really sweet. It's the same idea. The second thing that is happening when we experience these moments of boredom is we are activating the default mode network in our brains. What does this mean? We've all experienced this. Say you sit down and you're not doing anything, you have no task, you are just sitting in silence. Your brain is gonna start wandering, right? You're gonna think about things that have happened in the past, you're gonna think about your plans, things that are gonna happen in the future, dreams, goals, people you know. Maybe you start making up stories in your head. Your brain is gonna go off in a million different directions. And this cognitive mode is absolutely crucial for creatives. Think about how many ideas you have had while you are in the shower, while you're going for a walk. You're letting your mind wander, and this is how we generate ideas and inspiration and make connections. You know the quickest way to shut down the default mode network? It is to do things where there is a correlation between visual cues and narrative plot. Anything you watch on a screen, TV shows, movies, short form video, advertisements, even reading stories, reading news articles. All of these things engage your mind in such a way that you are shutting down your default mode network. You are not generating ideas. And that is fine. We don't need to be accessing this network every moment of our lives. That also would not be healthy. But if we are never accessing it, then we are only consuming. We are not creating. And for writers, that's a problem. Boredom makes us more creative. It has been studied. In a 2013 study, researchers asked folks to come up with as many creative uses as they could for a plastic cup. They found that people came up with more creative uses when they were first asked to do a boring task, copying numbers out of a phone book. So they said, that's interesting. I wonder what would happen if we made them do an even more boring task. So they did it again and said, this time just read the phone book. And folks came up with even more creative uses for a plastic cup. Our brains want to fill the gap created by lack of stimulation. And we do that by creating. Let's go back to our forest. We're walking along, enjoying the day, not really thinking about too much. But then we start hearing a sound that doesn't fit with the others. We hear drip, drip, drip. It's just barely there. But because it's so quiet, we're able to follow the sound. And we find a spring that is just dripping water. But we're patient. We don't have anywhere to be. So we take our bucket and we put it under the dripping spring, and it fills all the way to the top. Even though the water flow is so much less than that of the raging river, it is easier to fill our bucket. There is a natural cycle for creatives. Consume, process, create. When we have this constant stream of inputs coming at us like white water, we get stuck in that first step of consuming. We take in more and more information without ever pausing to process it and use it as fodder for our own creativity. So how do we fix this issue without a time machine? Many of us think about these habits from a subtractive perspective. I need to stop using my phone. I need to get off social media. This can be intimidating, and it can lead to a cycle of guilt and turning back to old habits. It is really hard to just cut things out of your life. It is much easier to use an additive approach. Think about where you can start fitting moments of boredom and space into your life. Y'all, this doesn't have to be an hour-long meditation. Here are some examples. Sit without input for 10 minutes. You could do this first thing after waking up, right before bed, after lunch, pretty much any time. Find a time of day that you can sit for 10 minutes. You don't have to meditate. You can let your mind wander and access that default mode network. Another example is to walk without headphones. Remember when we used to do that? Remember when we used to go for hikes or just walks around the neighborhood and just walk instead of listening to music or ebooks or podcasts? It doesn't have to be every time. It doesn't even have to be the whole walk. You can also work on having meals without screens. Comment if you've gotten hooked on this, because I definitely have. If I'm eating alone, I like watching something while I have supper, and I am working on getting out of that habit. Another good one is no devices before or after a certain time of day. So no devices for the first 30 minutes after you wake up or the last hour before bed. Having these rules to really build in stimulation-free time, or time with reduced stimulation. It can help us lower that overall baseline for stimulation and start getting our brains back into the habit of activating that default mode network. Instead of reaching for external stimulation when we feel bored, we want to train our brains to look inward, to create its own stimulation in the form of ideas, stories. And when we do this, we will feel like we have more hours in the day. It is incredible how this constant stimulation makes the day feel shorter. We wake up in the morning, start consuming, do our work, consume in between, and all of a sudden it's time to go to sleep. I know y'all have fallen into the hole where you start watching something and then you look up and 2 hours have gone by. Whereas if we put that down and think, let ourselves think and ideate, those hours go by much more slowly. And when we are accustomed to that stimulation, to that fast pace, then this can feel uncomfortable. But I think for most of us, when we really sit down and think about it, do we want our lives to go by in a flash? Or do we want to feel like we are truly living and experiencing each day? Y'all, boredom is truly useful. It drives us to think, to innovate, to create. The absolute enemy of creativity and inspiration is constant stimulation. It is the rushing river that splashes the water out of our buckets. And even though we live in a world that is constantly pushing this stimulation and these inputs, we don't have to accept them all the time. We can step out of the river and go for a quiet walk through the forest. When we pause, notice, and embrace boredom, the springs of ideas become evident, and we become more connected to ourselves, to our minds, and to our creativity.